Let's talk about how to book more sales calls and get more clients from your content. Because chances are, if you're watching this video, you probably are posting content and you probably want some more clients. And I'm going to walk you through the 4 types of content that you need to have in your weekly content cadence to hit the different psychological triggers that get somebody from a stranger on the internet to trusting you enough to want to buy from you. Now, I have very humbly been called in the industry the conversion content guy. And this is because I've learned how to be able to create content that truly drives conversions without needing to have a big audience. In fact, my audience across the board, if I look at my Facebook group, my Instagram, my YouTube, my email list, I probably have a total of like 5,000 or 6,000 people, and I've been able to generate millions of dollars online. And so my goal here and my intention is to show you how to use content better. And specifically, we're going to go into the content triangle, how to set up an ecosystem to meet Google's new standard, which they call the 7-11-4 formula, where you got to get an average consumer to consume 7 hours of content from you, 11 different touch points on 4 different mediums. I'm going to show you how I do it. And then, as I alluded to, the 4 types of content that you got to have in rotation to hit the different psychological triggers to get somebody to buy. And then we're going to go into campaigns, how to actually systematically be able to get calls booked on your calendar from your organic content. Now, let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing here you got to understand is that information itself is a commodity. If we just call out the elephant in the room, content information is everywhere. Like Google has done a study that shows there's 1.2 billion posts being published every single day on the internet, which is freaking wild, right? That's more information that somebody can consume in a day now than they would consume in a lifetime back in like the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s. And so it's not just about putting out information anymore. Secondly, we want to understand what I was alluding to, Google's kind of 7-11-4 formula. We need to strategically get your ideal clients to consume at least the minimum 7 hours of content from you. And the quicker you can make that happen, the quicker you're going to get somebody to trust you enough to want to work with you and to receive enough value and to get the belief shifts and all that stuff we're going to talk about. And so with that being said, the first thing I want to show you here is the content triangle. So I call this an ecosystem, but it works almost like the Bermuda Triangle. So if you imagine the Bermuda Triangle, legends say that if, between the points of Bermuda, Florida, and Puerto Rico, there's this like mysterious force, this triangle, if you will, that pulls in planes and boats and everything else, I suppose. Well, content works the same way. And so if you're still trying to follow these outdated tactics where you're just kind of posting and you're praying, it's like that spray and pray where you're just putting stuff on maybe Instagram or Facebook or freaking tickety-tocketies or whatever, and you don't actually have a well-rounded strategy, it's really hard. It's really hard to get seen because information is a commodity. And so rather, what we want to be able to do is set up 3 different points. And so commonly used, you're going to have one social channel. And the common ones are going to be Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. That's what most people are going to use depending on their avatar. And the reason it's important to optimize one is because Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, these are all different platforms. Yes, while Facebook or Meta owns Facebook and Instagram, they still operate differently. The strategy that I would give to a client that is using Instagram would be different than a strategy I'd give to a client using Facebook. They're just different. The same thing with LinkedIn. The same thing with YouTube. And so you want to pick one main social channel where you can easily drive top of funnel traffic through organic and or ads. Does that make sense? And so, and we're going to dive more into the cadence and the campaigns on what to post, when to post, how to post on these platforms in just a second. But understand this. And then the second thing is you need to collect emails. Like if you're not collecting emails right now, you're just literally at the whims of the algorithm. Like I was just chatting with a dude the other day who had like 25,000 followers on his Instagram. He's in functional health, so he was selling peptides and coaching and stuff. And Instagram literally took his freaking profile down in a day. They didn't like that he was talking about peptides. They took it down. It's gone. Luckily for him, he had an email list of 3,000 people, so he was still able to go about business as usual. So you want to have an email list, and we're going to talk about how to be able to drive traffic from your social media to that email list so that you could continually build up your email list, and then what to be able to put on your email list to be able to book more sales calls. Hang tight, we're going to get there in a second. And the third triangle here is we need to have some type of long form kind of nurture, like what I call a nurture channel. So this could be like a Instagram, or sorry, this could be a YouTube or a podcast. You want to have something to where people can like literally come and binge watch if they're into your content. Does that make sense? And so YouTube is typically the best, in my opinion, is you can also strip the audio and put it on a podcast as well. And so with YouTube, you also want to make sure it is a lead magnet to where you're able to collect emails. And if you look in you could put stuff in the description to be able to get people to opt in for an ebook or whatnot. Like you're going to see what I'm doing. So right here, I have this ebook, and it's called the 7-Figure Conversion Content ebook. And it's literally a swipe file of like all of the different posts that have been successful for me and clients. And you're going to see that in the description where you can literally download so you can model exactly what I'm teaching right now. So that's the big key, is you want to create this ecosystem on the top that's going to allow you to consistently get more inbound leads and more calls booked, because you're getting people to that 7-hour content consumption rule. And then of course, like there's nuances that we're going to get into in terms of like, once they're on your email list, what do you send them? How do you get more calls booked? How are you generating leads and getting more emails and phone numbers and stuff collected so that you can become more prominent, more present in your ideal client's life? We're going to get to that in just a second. But understand that is very, very important, because if you're just spraying and praying, you're going to be probably struggling. Now, the second big thing here is we want to be able to have a well-established weekly content cadence. It's a rhythm, if you will. It's kind of like if you were trying to get completely shredded. Like I'm talking, you wanted to get like 6-pack shredded, and maybe you're there right now, and maybe you're like, you're gonna be like, I get it, but you're gonna have to have a weekly workout rhythm. You're gonna have a cadence to your workouts. Are you doing push day, pull day, leg day? Are you doing full bodies? Are you doing 2-a-days? You're going to have some type of established cadence that gets you to the end result, that gets you to the outcome. It's the same thing with content. You want to have a rhythm that hits the right types of things to get you to the outcome. And so the 4 main types of content that you need in order to get a stranger on the internet to become a paying client is you need to have connection, right? So connection is going to be what attracts the right people to you. It's going to be content that resonates with people. So if you think about stories you could tell, personal stories, if you think about your lifestyle, right? Are you a father? Are you trying to attract other fathers? You probably want to share about your lifestyle. What are your beliefs? Do you have certain beliefs that are going to repel others but attract people to you? Your personality, like showing who you are, is going to naturally attract people that jive with you, that jive with your personality. Because you're never going to have an ideal business. You're never going to truly like be able to create resonance with people if you're trying to be somebody that you're not. So that's square one. But having content that you can put out there that connects with people is absolutely important. And if you look at Robert Cialdini's book on influence, this is one of the big principles in terms of influencing people. And so the second one is going to be influence, direct influence content. And so influence is what's ultimately going to convert. And I'm going to explain more in a second, but ultimately you're planting a seed of new belief where you are literally shifting somebody's belief. You're shifting their perspective. You're maybe busting a myth. You're kind of dismantling a common misconception that's happening. And perhaps you're showing them a new way. And so really good belief shifting content, as an example, what I used to use in my weight loss business all of the time was that all of my ideal clients were business owners that were trying to lose weight. And they all thought that they had to just diet and eat healthy. And all of a sudden, magically, they were going to just shed all their weight. And they often found that they were still stuck with the stubborn fat. And so I had to get in there and I had to create content that literally shifted the way they thought. So instead of me saying like, yeah, don't diet, it's stupid, they're like, oh, well, easy for you to say. I went in there and explained that, hey, it's about eating right, not just healthy. If you learn how to eat right for your specific goals, which in their case was losing stubborn belly fat, then you will start to be able to lose the fat. And so I would then teach them my way of what eating right means. which I called Flex Fuel Nutrition. And now all of a sudden, I had this new way of doing things, and I planted this new seed of like, hey, it's not just about eating healthy, it's about eating right. Again, and then I would educate them on what that means. And when I did this, they now thought differently. So instead of me just going and teaching something at them, they now were like, And this is how a thought leader becomes a thought leader, is you're literally changing the way people think. And when you can do that, I think we've all heard the book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. So when you get somebody to think differently, they're going to start to have different emotions. They're going to take different actions. They're going to be more courageous because they have hope that you have a different way, and you're teaching them how to actually think like they should to achieve success. So influence content is absolutely key. And then we have authority. This is what I call the KLT, and I'm sure you've heard this before, know, like, and trust. I see a lot of coaches and experts and consultants, they will hang heavy here. They will post a lot of authority content. In fact, the one that's missing the most is influence and conversion, right? I see a lot of creators, a lot of coaches will go heavy on connection and authority. So they're in the friend zone, or they're in like the expert zone. So it's like friend zone or expert zone doesn't pay the bills. You need to be in the demand zone, which we're going to get into. Okay. And so authority is where you're teaching frameworks. So kind of what I'm doing right now, I'm teaching a bit of a framework on how to book more calls with content. This is where you're sharing insights. Again, kind of like I'm doing right now. This is where you're demonstrating expertise. Again, all of this stuff, I'm pretty heavy into authority right now, right? Or even demonstrating social proof. So this is where you can share case studies or testimonials or different things like that. And I'm going to show you here in a minute how you can do this all in a video that actually hits all 4 of these psychological triggers, connection, influence, authority, conversion, to be improved, that I bucket in with authority. So that way, one piece of content, otherwise known as like a video sales letter, done right, can help really expedite the nurture process and get more calls booked. But with that said, if you mix these different types of content in throughout the week, you're going to find that you will get way more people inside of your inbox and wanting to get on calls with you. And then the last one here, this is what actually gets people to book the calls for the most part. It can happen with influence with done right, and if you have a good call to action. But conversion content is where you do directly have a very specific call to action or an offer that you're making. Maybe it's to a workshop. Maybe it's to your actual program. Maybe it's to some type of challenge you're running. It's just something that's more offer driven, where these other pieces of content are very specifically intended to either connect, influence, or build authority. Conversion is designed to build demand. And so where many people go wrong with their content is they're trying to build desire. But we don't have to do that. There's plenty of people that are trying to lose weight, grow their, make more money, grow their businesses. They're trying to have better relationships. We don't have to create desire. We have to channel the demand into our stuff. In fact, there is a famous, copywriter and marketer, the late Eugene Schwartz, who said that same thing. That's where I got it from. Is he says we don't have to create. He called it the copywriter, right? The copywriter's task is not to create mass desire; it's to channel it into your products and services. And that's it. And so when you hit these 4 psychological triggers, right, which is ultimately trust, resonance, clarity, and desire/demand, then you're able to get more people to reach out to you without you chasing them, and to want to book calls from you and ultimately become clients. And again, if you want to see, I'm going to go through how to book the calls with the campaigns. But if you want to see my content cadence and you want my swipe file here, just click in the description below and you'll be able to download it if you would like. And then the last thing here is we want to create campaigns. So what I want you to think about a campaign as is a 3 to 5 post, or we could even consider this in days, because it's not necessarily about the number of posts you do with the campaign. It's really about the hook and the call to action and how you're driving traffic, which I'll explain. And so a really good campaign, let's pretend for like a workshop or a masterclass, or maybe you're trying to fill a few quote unquote spots inside of your program, 5 to 7 days is plenty of time to run a campaign. If you're going to launch something bigger, right? If you look at the extreme of like Alex Hormozi's $100 million book launch, that dude put in years to get to, he was teasing that stuff since he launched his first book. You know what I mean? That was a massive, very extreme way of promoting. For most people, that if you're just trying to get 50 people to attend a workshop, or if you're trying to fill 5 spots in your program, you don't need to go that long, obviously. And so typically anywhere between like 5 to 7 days is plenty of time, maybe 10 days. If you go past 10 to 14 days when you're running a campaign or promotion, in my experience, it's too long. It becomes kind of like white noise to people. And so with the campaign, this is how you'll get calls booked on your calendar. Is you want to start with a great hook. Like, this is where so many people go wrong, is they're just like, yeah, buy my stuff, or they intend to put out a good promotion, but it's all about features and benefits. It's not doing what it needs to do. And so what we need to do is come up with a good hook, and we need to think in terms of, what does our ideal client want? Like, we've all heard the kind of adage here of sell them what they want and give them what they need. But most people, they don't do that, at least not correctly, which is why they struggle to get consistent calls booked and sales. And so what we need to do is think about, what do they want? And so, for example, going back to my weight loss business, which I sold back in 2021, is I would say, if you want to lose that last 20, 25 pounds of stubborn belly fat, which was a very big desire. I'm talking like, this was a bleeding neck problem for my audience. Like, they were so self-conscious of it. They tried everything they wanted. So I was really calling out that, and then everything they didn't want to do, right? They had families. They didn't want to spend 2 hours in the gym. They didn't want to freaking like they went to networking meetings all the time and dinners, and they would travel for work. They didn't want to have to like skip out and be that like weird person. That's what they considered. And so I had to frame everything and make it desirable. And that's how I would frame my hooks. You get what I'm saying? And so it's super important for you to nail the hook. Otherwise, any campaign that you do is going to flop. It's going to literally go down the toilet. And then once you have that, you want to make the call to action extremely specific and extremely clear. It's like, the more specific and clear you can make it, to where somebody knows if they respond to your call to action, they should be clear on what's going to happen next. We don't want to make people guess, because that's where uncertainty comes from. That's where a little bit of fear comes from. And that's just where that's what's going to stop people from taking action. This is why, if you do consistently hit those 4 different psychological triggers in your content, it's going to help when you run these campaigns, because you're going to have more people that are primed and ready, especially if you're doing step 1 as well, and you have a really well done ecosystem that is systematically getting people to consume 7 hours of content while hitting all of those different 4 types of content triggers. And then you start to run these campaigns with a great hook and a great call to action. You could put out 3 to 4 posts and emails, and you can literally fill up your program in a matter of minutes, period, or at least have the demand. And what a lot of my clients do, and myself included, will run like a masterclass or a workshop. They'll drive people to a Zoom session, or they'll do like a live training in their Facebook group. And then they'll get 50 to 100 people to attend. They'll make an offer, and then they'll get 10, 20 calls booked, all in the single, like in an hour training session. You know what I mean? From just saying one call to action. That's the power of this stuff. And so, to recap, if you're still following a lot of these outdated strategies, to where maybe you're running a lot of top of funnel traffic and ads, but it's a nightmare. You got a whole mess. You got to go high level pipeline that's just full of people, and you don't have a well done strategy to where you have a great social media strategy, a great email strategy, a great long form channel strategy. You're not systematically getting people to consume 7 hours. You're kind of stuck in short form hell, short form content hell. And you're not hitting the different psychological triggers that are needed to be hit, and you're not running campaigns. It's going to be really hard, in my experience, in our kind of digital AI era, to consistently get calls booked on your calendar in client side. But if you follow these principles, if you follow these steps, if you implement the strategy, you will. So if you want to see the swipe file that I have and an example of the content cadence, you'll find the link somewhere in the description. I hope it helps. If you found this video helpful, make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss out on any more. Let me know what you thought about in the comment section below. And as always, have an amazing day. Get out there, change some lives, make some money, and let's make this world a freaking better place.